Greetings, my friends, and welcome back to Monster Monday. Today's episode, I'm going to handle one of the D&D classics. It's the Umber Hulk. Alright guys, the Umber Hulk has been around in D&D for as long as I could remember, and that's a pretty long time. Now, in earlier versions of the game, I'm not sure if it's just because I was a kid or maybe because of the original Monster Manual illustrations, but I always thought of the Umber Hulk as kind of like a big ogre with a different kind of approach. But really, they're more like a humanoid insectoid kind of hybrid, which makes sense when you really delve into, and pun intended, the fact that they're generally underground, burrowing kind of creatures. Now, right off the bat, we can assume that this is going to be for underground encounters, but I'm going to share some ideas that are kind of variations on that, as well as how you could scale the Umber Hulk for low-level and high-level adventures. To start off with, though, let's delve a little bit deeper into the lore. An abominable horror from deep beneath the earth, an Umber Hulk burrows into cave complexes, dungeons, or underdark settlements in search of food. Those lucky enough to survive an Umber Hulk attack often remember precious little of the incident, thanks to the Umber Hulk's mind-scrambling gaze. So right there in the opening paragraph, they give you a few suggestions where you could have Umber Hulks in encounters. We're talking caves, dungeons, underdark, but I think that could expand to mines, mountain encounters, even maybe underneath cities if you have some sewer things. So a few, with a little bit of imagination, you could really expand how much you can use the Umber Hulk. Umber Hulks can burrow through solid rock, forming new tunnels in their wake. The steel-hard chitin of its body can withstand the cave-ins, tunnel collapses, and rock falls that commonly follow it. Burrowing into the wall of a cavern or passageway, an Umber Hulk lies in wait for creatures to pass by on the other side, its hair-like feelers sensing any movement around it. When it explodes out in a shower of earth and rock, its unsuspecting quarry turns to face the oncoming threat and is entranced by the Umber Hulk's bewildering eyes, forced to stand helpless as its mandibles snap shut. When I think of a creature like this, I think purple worm. But of course, we've already talked about the purple worm, and the purple worm can be a really high-level, massive death encounter. The Umber Hulk's kind of more geared for mid-level. So it's got some of the advantages of a burrower like the purple worm without being as deadly and without being as likely to TPK your whole group. Many survivors of an Umber Hulk encounter recollect little about the attack because the monster's confusing gaze scrambles their memory of the event. Those who have fought and killed Umber Hulks recognize the signs. For other denizens of the Underdark, grisly tales of vanished explorers and wanton destruction speak of an unknown foe. Umber Hulks take on supernatural status in these harrowing stories, many of which convey the same warning. Once an Umber Hulk has been spotted, it is already too late to escape it. So we're going to talk about their special confusion power in just a second, but I like to generate ideas while I'm reading things, as I'm sure many of you do too as well. So one of the things that jumped out with me when I was considering doing this for a Monster Monday was the idea that you could build a mythos around this Umber Hulk. In other words, it doesn't have to just be a drop-in encounter where you throw an Umber Hulk at a group of adventurers who are in mines or caverns or caves or dungeons. This could be something that begins a larger adventure or even a campaign. And in that regard, what I mean is the Umber Hulk can kind of begin its mischief, and maybe you have some survivors who kind of come into town, or they come across the party while the party's on an expedition, and the survivors don't recall what this creature was or what the attack was, but they know that, when they were doing this dig site or they were mining or whatever it is that you had the NPCs doing, that, a bunch of them were killed and, a couple of these guys were lucky enough to escape. So you can kind of begin to build a mystery around this creature without revealing it to the party right away, which I think is kind of a crucial difference between just throwing it, into an encounter and building this up into an overall adventure. But we'll get some more ideas brewing. Let's take a look at the stat block. So the Umber Hulk is a large monstrosity, and it is challenge rating 5 in 5th edition, which I think makes sense given its abilities. But again, we'll talk about scaling that either down for low-level encounters or up for higher level. So they have dark vision, 120 feet. They have tremor sense for 60 feet. To me, as a DM, that makes me think that this is a lurker. And when when you're reading the text description about the Umber Hulk, it's definitely an ambushing kind of lurker. I don't see Umber Hulks being like armies and packs. I see them as kind of being loners. But it's also the kind of thing where maybe they're I don't want to say clever enough, but instinctively the way that they hunt their prey is kind of like an ambush approach. And because they can burrow, they can attack, and if they're overwhelmed, they can retreat. Fight or flight is an animal instinct. So one of the things that I think a DM should work towards, striving towards, is deciding how monsters approach parties. And I don't think it's inappropriate or unrealistic for a monster to flee if they're overwhelmed or outnumbered or losing the battle, especially if it's a hunter who's maybe took on this group thinking that it would be easy prey, and then the group is whooping ass, and now this monster has to decide if it wants to live or die, and how hungry is it. So maybe it leaves and it burrows its way out. So I think that's important. But let's look at the real gem with the Umber Hulk, and that's the confusing gaze. When a creature starts its turn within 30 feet of the Umber Hulk and is able to see the Umber Hulk's eyes, the Umber Hulk can magically force it to make a DC 15 Charisma saving throw unless the Umber Hulk is incapacitated. On a failed saving throw, the creature can't take reactions until the start of its next turn and rolls a D8 to determine what it does during that turn. On a 1 through 4, the creature does nothing. On a 5 and 6, the creature takes no action but uses all its movement to move in a random direction. On a 7 or 8, the creature makes one melee attack against a random creature, or it does nothing if no creature is within reach. That 7 or 8 could make a lot of chaos really quickly, because that means party members could be attacking each other or NPCs that are traveling with the group. Or likewise, if there are NPCs traveling with the group and they fail their saves, they could attack the party. So that's a powerful ability. There's a little more to this, though. Unless surprised, a creature can avert its eyes to avoid the saving throw at the start of its turn. If the creature does so, it can't see the Umber Hulk until the start of its next turn, when it can avert its eyes again. If the creature looks at the Umber Hulk in the meantime, it must immediately make the save. So I see that being a lot of fun for a lot of different reasons. And these are ways that you could use the Umber Hulk in encounters or in adventures. It also has the tunneler ability. So the Umber Hulk can burrow through solid rock at half its burrowing speed and leaves a 5-foot wide, 8-foot high tunnel in its wake. It has 3 attacks, 2 with its claws and 1 with its mandibles. The claw attacks are +8 to hit with a reach of 5 feet, and they do 1d8 plus 5 slashing damage each. The mandibles are +8 to hit, and they do 2d8 plus 5 each. So let's talk about options. Let's scale this down first. Let's start at low level. You have a group, levels 1 through 3, maybe 4, and they're going through a dungeon, caves, mines, whatever, and you decide that you want to have an Umber Hulk in this encounter or in this adventure. You could have them discover these odd tunnels that don't seem to fit with the rest of the style of the tunnels, and maybe they're curious about what it is. Maybe you have experienced players and they even guess in advance that it's an Umber Hulk. Never reveal that it's an Umber Hulk. Let them guess what it is. But the time comes for the encounter. Now, it would make sense that the Umber Hulk would take advantage of the tunnels that it's already dug, and it would kind of try to have an area where it could ambush the party. what you could do is take this one Umber Hulk against a low-level party, and to scale it down a little bit to make it a little less deadly, you have a couple options. Number one, I would say don't get rid of the confusing gaze, but you could make the saving throw DC a little bit lower so it's a little more reasonable that they could survive it. So maybe instead of a DC 15, you make it a DC of 12 or 10. Another thing is you could reduce the number of hit points, because it does have 11 D10 plus 33 hit points. So you can cut that in half and give it like 60 hit points. You can make it a medium-sized Umber Hulk and just say that it's a young Umber Hulk or an adolescent Umber Hulk. You could reduce the claw, attack, hit, and damage. So all of those are ways that you could have fun using an Umber Hulk with a lower level party and not totally kill them. Make it a challenge, make it interesting, have that confusing gaze have an impact on the party, but not necessarily with the intent to kill them. Now at mid-level, which is, I feel, where this creature is best fit, because that's kind of what its abilities are, hit points, attacks, its CR rating. At mid-level, you can go full blast and use the monster as intended. You don't really need to adjust anything or change anything. And for sure, take advantage of that confusing gaze. And maybe the Umber Hulk is smart enough where it's encountered adventurers before, and if the adventurers avert their gaze and they don't look at it, it disengages and uses its movement to go around through one of its tunnels and circles back behind the party to surprise them. So I think an Umber Hulk would be aware of its confusing gaze ability and how to use it. And I'm not saying tactically, but just intuitively, like an animal knows how to do what an animal knows how to do. Now, the real clincher is high level. How do you put these guys into effect at high level? So let's think of my general tools for scaling things up or down. First of all, obviously, we can make this a lot tougher. It has an armor class of 18, which is pretty darn good already. I don't know that I would change that for high-level encounters. I'd kind of leave it, but you could buff its hit points or max them out. You could definitely increase the DC of the confusing gaze. So you can keep it as a large creature and have the DC for the confusing gaze against charisma be 18 instead of 15 or 20 if you really wanted to go hog wild. But I think the best way to scale the Umber Hulk for high level is to have multiple Umber Hulks. So think of pack tactics with Umber Hulks. Imagine a situation where there's a hive of Umber Hulks, because in a lot of ways they are insect creatures, right? And ants work together, bees work together. Most insects kind of work together. So what if you, for a higher level encounter, had like a hive of Umber Hulks? So you have the in essence pack tactics approach with these Umber Hulks, where they're attacking and flanking opponents. They're using their confusing gaze on everyone in the party, and you've raised the DC for resisting that confusing gaze. Now you've created a really much more deadly and challenging encounter using the Umber Hulk for high-level people, when high-level people might underestimate the Umber Hulk. Just by adding a few more and having them kind of attack more in unison and gaining advantage, or if you don't use the advantage option, still just being able to surround a group, use their confusing gaze, flanking them, just makes them a little bit more challenging. Okay, so let's talk about story hooks. So I referenced an idea that I had, which is very much in line with how they're described, and that is the idea of making this a mystery. So there are some strange disappearances that have been happening in the local mines, or people have been disappearing even in the city, or this expedition that has set up a base camp in the mountains has had people gone missing. So any of these scenarios, right? And you don't let the party know right off the bat that this is the work of an Umber Hulk, but you leave them clues. What kind of clues? Well, maybe you see these different shaped tunnels that have been bored through, and they go to investigate, and the tunnels aren't structurally sound. Maybe you have a dwarf in the party who has that stone cutting ability and finally gets to use it, and can warn the party that this tunnel is going to collapse. But you have kind of this mystery established, then you allow the party to investigate, and maybe they come across an Umber Hulk, maybe they defeat the Umber Hulk, but there's more. Because there's a whole colony of Umber Hulks living in this mountain or living in tunnels that have been connected now to the mines or connected to the dungeons. Whatever your setting, adjacent to that setting for your adventure is a colony of Umber Hulks. And maybe you decide that there's someone beyond the Umber Hulks leading them, which is why they're using pack tactics. So depending on whether you're doing mid-level or high-level, obviously you have to consider how many Umber Hulks you're going to put into this mix. But if you wanted to scale this all the way up for high-level, you could have like a Mind Flayer controlling the Umber Hulks in this colony. And why? Maybe the Mind Flayer is having the Umber Hulks do the labor of digging around through this rock to search for something. Maybe there's some magical ore buried in this mountain that nobody knows about, but the Mind Flayer knows, and the Mind Flayer has the Umber Hulks doing all this burrowing to find this magical ore. I don't know, just some thoughts there, but hopefully this has been informative for you guys. If you have any Umber Hulk encounter ideas, or you've played in games or run games where you've encountered Umber Hulks or used Umber Hulks in your games, please share your stuff in the comments below. My community loves to share and reciprocate ideas with each other. And as always, thank you guys for your support, liking, subscribing, click on that little notifications bell, and we'll see you for the next Monster Monday.